All right, everybody, welcome back to Dogs and Gooses.
Man, it's only been a week, but it's felt like such a long time.
Absolutely, the place where the dogs are dirty and the goose is silly.
You best believe.
I just want to say, I hope once again the people have been eating and drinking. It's only been a week this time, so you'll probably survive without drinking or without eating, but not without drinking, right, Williams?
I think so. Well, yeah.
Well, that's
You need
fair.
water more than you need the food.
Yeah, you forget something in your backpack there, Williams?
Yeah, I forgot to plug in my charger. My battery isn't that good.
Oh, that's
And
fair.
even though it is fully charged, it will die.
Well, let's hope there's not too much feedback on the mic. But if there is, you guys will have to deal with it at home.
Yeah,
Um,
too bad.
all right, today we have joining us, first off, the man, the myth, the legend, Austin Wood.
Oh,
my
yes.
goodness.
Oh,
And-
thank you. Happy to be here.
As per the usual, we also have the greatest man alive, the dirty dog, Brandon Williams. I'll be your host today, the silly goose, Starks. And today, before we get into our topic, we're going to turn the time over to Williams to go over our news segment.
I got two very juicy pieces of news.
Ooh.
I know. The first one I found off the old NPR. And the headline is Foul-mouthed parrots are unlikely stars at a British zoo.
Oh, really? Okay.
So from the sounds of this article, they have, I think, 5 of these, I think they're African gray parrots. But a lot of them came from other places. People donated them from home.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And these parrots have picked up on a lot of just bad words. And I don't know if the bad words are that bad to us because it is, over in the UK.
Uh-huh.
I think their bad words are a little different than our bad words.
Yeah.
Like bugger and stuff like that.
Well,
I
tone
apologize.
it down.
Whoa.
I apologize.
Straight
I
to
forget-
the throat.
Oh my goodness.
I forgot we're a worldwide podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. So these parrots, it's funny because the guy says they mimic not just the words, but they also do the voice of the person who they heard the word from. And they had this lady bring in this parrot, and she said, "Oh, my husband taught it all these naughty words. That it was his fault." But the parrot was mimicking it in her voice.
Ooh.
That's funny.
The other one, I think, even more exciting. Found off Fox News. Contractor finds World War II grenade hidden behind wall while remodeling bathroom in Seattle.
Oh, jeez.
That's
And so
interesting.
he's just like ripping off this wall. All of a sudden, he sees this grenade sitting there. He quickly just like runs out of the room and hides there for about 5 minutes or so, just like, what's gonna happen. But you know what? How in the world you just leave a World War II grenade
Yeah, I mean,
In the wall.
sitting
that's
on,
a good place to
sitting
keep
on top
it.
of a stud or something,
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah. I mean, I do that at every job I work on.
That's right. Yeah.
It's my little trademark.
Yeah, that's right.
If anything ever goes wrong with the house, they're never going to know who worked on it.
That's right.
That whole section will be gone.
Every handyman has their trade.
Yeah.
That's
His is a grenade.
Yes.
Mine
He
is
had
a
whole bunch of spare
is a
World War II
small
ones.
nuclear bomb.
See, and that has a little
It has its own pizzazz.
Yeah.
That's some kick to it, right?
identity.
Yeah.
But that's all I had from the field. I'll turn it back
Well-
over to you, Starks.
Now you guys are all caught up on pretty much any significant world event in the past week.
Mm-hmm.
So our guest today, the man, the myth, the legend, Austin Wood, I actually brought you both here to fight.
Oh,
To determine
okay.
who the better
It's a good
roommate
thing
is.
I've been kind of doing a little bit of a workout. I saw this coming.
Yeah,
That's right.
I'm sure you
Yeah.
did.
That's
Well,
why
Austin
he came in a suit.
Yeah.
That's right.
Trying to be like John Wick over
That's
here.
right.
Yeah.
So Austin over here, Austin Wood, is a longtime friend of mine. He is my roommate from Southern Virginia University and one of the hardest working people I know. Sitting across the table from him, we have Williams, who's already been introduced to you, but as you well know, he was also my longtime roommate. And so I wanted to see you guys fight to see who was the better roommate, that sort of
I
stuff.
see.
All right.
I see. I see.
Were you ready?
Oh, I'm ready.
Oh, Austin played basketball last night to warm up, so he's ready.
Okay.
For the record, Austin is the most skilled young old man looking player I've ever played with.
Yes.
But
I don't know if that was a compliment to you.
it
or...
It's,
was a compliment.
kind of. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
it was a compliment with an observation linked in there.
Yep. That's right.
So Austin is an absolute stud of a man. Been playing basketball pretty much his whole life. He played basketball at a college level. Graduated. Were you you were an what's it called? Like an honor student? There's a word for it at SVU, right?
Yeah. It's been long enough. I don't remember what it was.
Something
but,
like that.
Yeah.
Something he was real important over there
Oh
at
yes.
SVU.
Real important in
Yeah.
academia. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, he's
That's right.
he's going to be remembered for generations.
That's right. Yes.
But as well as he recently has been running his own business on the side. That's not even his main gig, as well as is the what's your official title, Austin?
So I work at Pure Energy, and I manage all of our appointment setters.
Mm,
So I work in solar. I manage a team in San Antonio
mm,
area.
mm. Yeah, pretty much.
Far cry from here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right.
yeah, a
That's
little bit
right.
of a ways. He obviously traveled here specifically for this podcast and for nothing else.
Yeah.
That's right.
Um,
The dedication I appreciate.
Yes, absolutely.
he is the proud father of one awesome son, and is married
So
to the
far.
woman, the wonder, the
That's
one
right.
and only Laree.
Yes.
Anything else of note that you feel like people should know before we get into it?
I think that's a pretty good summary, Nate.
Okay,
Appreciate the introduction.
you're most welcome.
Yeah,
All I did was share facts, so it's pretty easy.
that's right.
But so it has been tasked on me to pick the topic today. Austin here is one of the hardest working people I know. Like, the amount of drive that this man has is insane. I first witnessed it at SVU when we were roommates, and I watched him work incredibly hard on basketball. And then, as basketball kind of drew to a close for Austin as he finished his 4th year, getting ready to retire,
Oof.
That's right. At the ripe age of 26.
at the ripe age of 26,
That's
he had several NBA offers, but he turned them all down,
Yep,
declined the draft, and the like.
that's right. Yeah, that's
um, but he transitioned more into kind of working with another small business that he and I both wound up working with for a time. But I have seen this man dedicate his life to many good things and just is a stud. So our topic for today decided to play to Austin's strengths, and we're doing inner tube water polo is our topic.
Oh yes.
No, I'm,
That's it.
I'm just
I
kidding.
have no idea what they
Yeah,
are.
that's right.
It's water polo, but you get an inner tube.
That's right.
It's
Yeah.
also not actually our topic.
We
Our
were the
real
founders.
topic is going to be drive and hard work,
Hmm.
as well as some of the things behind that. So I think we'll start with Austin. Austin, what do you think you would say is kind of your biggest driving factor, generally speaking? Obviously, each thing has different motivation.
Hmm. It's a good question. So I think drive and motivation are pretty interesting because uh, motivation itself kind of comes and goes,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I think like if you were uh, putting that on like a graph or a chart, it'd be like hills, mountains, it'd be up and down. You'd be going from 0 to 100 and everything in between.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what's interesting over the years when it comes to like drive and motivation is most often for me it comes down to discipline more than motivation because I'm not always motivated to get up in the morning, not always motivated to do the things that I want to do, but there's a certain, just when you get to a certain place where you're working towards goals or you have things that you want to accomplish or a lifestyle that you want to live, that it just becomes about showing up consistently. And a lot of times your motivation comes once you're in the place that you committed to be, as opposed to consistent and or there before most of the time. So so that's probably like a guiding principle that I've learned is like showing up and being consistent is what usually is going to motivate, and most of the time it doesn't work the other way. So
So you feel like it's more about discipline than it is about like feeling incredibly motivated.
because I think there are times when I've felt really motivated and disciplined, but like for example, when we were building a pest control company, that's what Nate and I did together. Like it's sometimes hard to feel motivated when it's like 105 in August, and
Yeah, it's
like
true.
you've
It's perfect time
it's
to be
like
outside for long periods.
it's exactly right, yeah, and it's like knock on the door and someone cusses you out. I'm not always feeling the most motivated walking away from that, right? But
Mhm.
I get that.
my discipline is what carries me to the next door with the same energy, same level of concentration, and just moving on to the next. So I think that's like a big part of it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's awesome. I completely agree with that, and I think actually I saw a meme of that recently that was talking about how it was contrasting how people think motivation works and how it actually works, and it was kind of showing that a lot of people think that successful people just have more motivation or more they have more motivation, like they have more drive to do that. But the like kind of joke in it was that the reality is they just have a lot more discipline. The motivation is the exact same level as pretty much anybody else. It's just going along with that. Williams, you're also a really hard working person. You know, you worked your way up into what's your title at your
Oh.
work again?
I'm a supervisor. I'm not sure exactly whether I'm a building operations manager yet
Uh
or
huh.
not. You know,
We're gonna call you building operations manager.
semantics.
We
That's
we
right.
we get to dictate what is said on our
That's
podcast,
right.
and you're a
He's
building operations manager.
I'm on par with Rye. You
Absolutely.
know,
he is the bomb.
He is. Well, Williams here actually. So it was a part time job, but worked it for what 4 years?
it was just during college
Yeah,
Yeah.
school, so I was
just
doing school full time and then
yep. And essentially
part-time.
worked your way into your position, um, just by being consistent, doing your job every day, doing it right, that sort of thing. While you were going to school, while you were doing all sorts of stuff, and you still do those things. You're an incredibly hard worker yourself.
Oh,
So,
starts.
well, Williams,
Oh,
William.
blushing over here.
Yeah, that's why we didn't want the camera. We didn't want to show
Okay.
your embarrassment, you know.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
As well as there's one trait that both of you share that I've noticed in both of you actually that I just barely made this connection. When both of you dedicate yourself to something, you go hard at it in the paint, and I mean that in like hobbies, just whatever. Like I've seen Austin go on a Destiny binge when he first discovered Destiny, which isn't exactly hard work,
Yeah.
but he was
Oh, it was hard
dedicated
work.
when it first happened. Oh, it was hard work. Yeah, Austin. And Williams did the exact same thing with Skyrim. And so those are more fun examples. Those are times where you're doing something you enjoyed. But I've seen that consistently with both of you for even things that are like not things you enjoyed per se. So Williams, do you have anything to add to the conversation about like, kind of motivation as compared to discipline?
Well, yeah, I do think discipline's a part of it, but also I feel a strong sense of, I think, duty.
Mhm.
When I put my name to something,
Mm.
I want it to be solid. When they see the name Brandon Williams,
Mm.
and it's just not for me. I think a lot of it has to do with my family background.
Yeah.
All growing up,
Mm.
my dad expected us when we were doing something that we'd work hard.
Mm.
You're Williams. We want the Williams name to be this solid thing that people can look at and rely upon.
Mm.
When we do something, it's going to be quality. We're going to do our very best at it.
Yeah.
May not be perfect, but we'll work hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
right.
it's
Yeah.
true.
And so I've kind of lived by that principle because I would like that to truly be my legacy.
Mm.
That's one of the few things that I may or may not get to pass down. I'm still unmarried.
Yeah.
Single.
Yeah.
For now. For now.
But I'd like that to carry on. And
Mhm.
when someone sees the Williams name, they know that was a quality job done.
That's cool.
That they can depend on me.
Yeah. And you mentioned your dad teaching you that. I think your dad is an excellent example of that too. Old Brian, sorry.
It's really
I
a
said
success
Brian.
story, to be honest with you.
No, Brian. Yeah, well, Brian has worked his way. I mean, I've never met Brian, but we've talked about his life and career. And I remember you talking about him being, what was he, like a pole? What's the
Kind of like a lineman.
a
He worked
lineman?
for
Yeah.
Quest, which now merged and became CenturyLink.
Okay.
Uh
Yeah.
huh.
He was
I
just
was gonna say pole worker, but that's not the same thing, though.
not quite.
That's right.
Depends on the context.
That's right. That's right.
But yeah, go ahead. Sorry, he was a lineman.
I mean, his whole life growing up didn't have an ideal family situation. I think for quite a few years, and I remember he told the story when he was in second grade. The teacher walks up to him and she's like, "You're gonna be in prison. You're gonna
Wow.
go to prison when you grow up."
Dang.
Something like that.
And Brian
so
said, "Challenge accepted."
That's right.
he graduated high school. He said 2.0 and go, and he had some things that happened in his life. And originally, he wasn't gonna go on a mission for the church. He was a member of our church, but that wasn't the top of his priority list at the
Yeah.
time. But some things happened, and he said, "I'm gonna go on my mission." He did. Came back with a lot more drive, and he had kind of figured things out, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so he started doing stuff like fiber optics. Then he moved to stuff like Quest, uh, working on power lines or telephone lines, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
And then he decided to, I think he had 4 kids when he started, but by the end he had 5. To go back to school online, do that full time while working full time and raising the kids.
Yeah,
it's a lot.
Yeah. Right, and I don't know how he did all that. He still made time for us. I remember him being around.
Yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
But so I know that a ton of sacrifices were made. When I'm like, wow, because both the bachelor's and the master's degree during that time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then decides to. I think he took a pay cut for his first job with his degree to become a clinic manager at our local clinic. And then we've moved around a few times because of this, but
Yeah.
he started managing multiple medical clinics. Then he got into hospital administration, worked his way, and now he's a rural hospital CEO.
Oh, cool.
So, and it's kind of he's now got his dream job.
Yeah.
And a lot of, I think, has come from, I think, the discipline is a huge thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think that he was trying to leave behind, his mark. Because when he does something, he really cares about his hospital and the organizations that he's worked for.
Yeah.
And he's cared about us, and it's left his impression on us kids. So I honestly respect the man.
Yeah.
Like you would not believe. I'm lucky to have him as my father.
Yeah.
Shout out to Brian.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Shout
out to
Shout
Brian.
out to Dad.
Shout out to Brian.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, your dad's pretty similar to that too, Austin. I've met your dad. Amazing guy. Like,
Yeah.
very interesting life. Very interesting. Done a lot of interesting things.
Yeah, and I think I can credit a big chunk of who I am and how I operate to my parents as well. So when I remember when I was a kid, like we lived in a little condo, like there was a little kitchen, little dining room, a living room, then it was a bathroom, my parents' bedroom, and ours. The whole thing was, I'm sure it was under 1,000 square feet, and we lived in that until I was probably like, I remember that until I was probably like 6 or 7, and then it's like bought like a totally beat up house that we fixed, rehab, did the whole thing. And so I saw progression there. But my dad at that time, like he raced motorcycles professionally for a long time.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. So
that's crazy.
yeah. So like it was like 15 years he was on the AMA circuit, which is the national circuit for street bike. The guy's going 150 miles an hour in leathers, leaned over on motorcycles. So that's what he did. And like when I was young, he had went to school to be an engineer, and then was a racer and grew up on motorcycles and that whole thing. So he wanted to race professionally, which he started at about 19, I think, was when he really like went full into that and was going down that track. And so he starts a business like right about the time that I was born, which was 94, where he's designing and aftermarket parts for racing like motorcycles. So everything you would need to make it race ready faster and all that. And so that business is called Woodcraft. So he was building that. So, and I remember like my mom telling stories of like when they didn't have money, he would go out in the winter and like chop wood,
Mm.
like just do stuff to just make it happen while he was racing, building business, doing that. And got to the point where the racing career, they like essentially maxed out their credit cards and it was like, okay, go win because like you got to make it happen or here we
Dang.
go. And so he put his head down, went out and did that, won a bunch of races and did really well, made all that money back and then some. And then he was his own billboard for his products. So he would build them for
That's
the
awesome.
build them for the bikes and then
Mm.
was winning and was a front runner. And so I always just had that example of working super hard. He was always training, staying in good shape, traveling, running a business, doing that, and while also like being a great father and example. And my mom was very similar. She decided when she had me and my sister less than a year apart. Um, she decided that she was going to go to nursing school. So my dad's running businesses, doing all this stuff. She's taking care of both of us. And she was in school from the time that I can remember all the way until I was 18 or 19, going from associates to, actually, it was, she graduated from college with a bachelor's degree, went back to school for nursing, worked through a master's, then worked through like a doctorate, then just kind of watched them both over 20 years build from zero to being really well off. And so I just learned that in order to get what I wanted, there's a process you got to commit to. There's hard work. There's doing things that most people aren't willing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad used to tell me that if you want to find success in ways that others aren't finding success, you got to be willing to do the things that others aren't willing to do. And I watched them do that, like put the time in, lose sleep, travel a lot, like to really make it happen and build the life for our family that they wanted. And so I think that's a lot of where the discipline and motivation comes to, is that's what I just watched my parents do growing up, which I'm super grateful for. And
Mm-hmm.
I think is a huge reason why I am where I am now and think the way that I do. Yeah. So definitely very grateful, love my parents. And it was cool to kind of watch them do similar to what your dad did, where it's like he had a goal and a track in mind and worked for a long period of time to get there.
Mm-hmm.
While also, I think this is an important thing, like doing, like being exceptional in family and the things that really are more important at the
Yeah.
same time.
Well, I mean,
I gotta give props to my mom too. Like you said,
Yeah.
your mom, mine, never went to school, and she was always stay at home. But
Yeah.
I know that for a fact that us five were quite a handful.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so because my dad had so much going on too, she was consistently there, taking care of what we needed to do, just day to day. So
well, you also told the story of like your dad working far away.
oh yeah, no,
At some points while he had to either drive
There was
home or
a-
he would be gone for like a week and come home on weekends
there
sometimes.
was a full year, a year and a month, where we were trying to sell the house, just couldn't do it. And my dad just got a job 4 hours away,
Wow.
so he would commute, be gone the whole week. It's just my mom taking care of us
Well, yeah.
for the whole week until he came
Mhm.
back during the weekends. Then come Sunday, sometime he'd leave again.
And that's with 5 kids too. So
Yeah.
maybe not 5 then. I don't know. I don't know the whole story, but I
We
remember
were
hearing
in
that story.
I think in our kind of rambunctious phase. We were missing dad.
Well,
too.
you've never
Yeah, it's a-
you've never missed lost your
I-
rambunctious
It's
phase.
just-
You're still in it.
I've always got a little rambunctious side. But no, I think both parents working super hard towards the goal is a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's cool to have that reliance upon each other. I
Well-
don't know, like, what is it like with how long have you been married?
About 2.5 years now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've seen some of that too. You both working hard towards this.
Larry's a hard worker for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something I really admired about her. We met at SVU. She was a volleyball player there. I was playing basketball, but I always loved that. Like really hardworking. She was a captain and leader of their team. Uh, just set the example. Just would always be consistent, and she's been the same way in our marriage. Just like consistently supportive, hardworking. Just a rock overall. My biggest support. So I'm really grateful for her. Um, and I think that's. I mean, it does apply because right now, in the last year, I set a goal. I moved into solar, and which was new. Nate and I had been doing pest control, and I got out of that business to go into solar, but it was a new thing. Like we were essentially starting from scratch, like financially, other stuff, because I invested money and all that into it, and so pretty much it back to zero or more negative because it's like now I've got debt and bills, and she was like 7, 8 months pregnant, uh, or basically having our son at that time. So she wasn't working at that point because her pregnancy was brutal. She was super sick the whole time. So yeah, which was rough, but another testament to her strength there. She handled that really, really well. It was as uncomfortable as she was, still pleasant to be around, which was impressive to me also. But it's interesting because like without her support, like yes, I could still do what I'm doing and accomplish it, but it's a lot harder.
Mm.
Um, and so she like bolsters me up and just is a big motivation. You talk about a driver for wanting to do what I'm doing is like a reason I want to be successful, make a lot of money, and do that is just to provide a lifestyle for our family that is just allows us to maybe even avoid some of the like kind of experiences like you're talking about having to be away for a week. Like my parents sacrificed and did hard things that I look at and I'm like, I hope that I can learn from that and get to a similar place or get past where they were at financially without
Mm-hmm.
some of those same experiences. So I think her support is pretty big, especially early while we have young kids, like really trying to make it happen now.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, I think every good parent's goal for their kids is for
yeah,
them to surpass them. Like
yeah,
I don't have kids. The only one here that has kids right now, as far as I know, Williams is
that's,
Austin.
that's right.
Yeah,
Um,
so far.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
is
that's right.
Austin. But I
Yeah,
imagine for you, you would hope that whatever you achieve in life, that Easton achieves more,
yeah.
and surpasses that. Um, but while we're giving shout outs, I was going to say Austin and I have been talking about, actually earlier today, we were talking about the difference that your support system can make.
Hmm.
And so it's interesting that we're talking about discipline and hard work and trying to be successful and all this stuff. And immediately, I honestly didn't plan for it to go this way. Like,
Yeah.
if you want to know my notes, everyone at home, it says drive, hard work, and then I didn't know what else to put, so I put how much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood.
That sounds like the kind of notes you would have written down.
Pretty much.
if if you want to know a representation of me as a person, that is me.
Pretty much what we've been talking about.
Yeah.
I'm
Yep.
excited for that last section.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, we'll get to it. Don't you worry.
Yeah.
We don't jump ahead of it.
Yeah.
You can think about it. It's a tough question.
Yeah. That's right.
Um, but Austin and I have been talking about even in relationships, like the difference in support systems.
Yeah.
So shout out to Maddie. She's the girl I'm dating right now, and she's like incredibly supportive of me, and I've been very much appreciative of that. Um, but I just thought of that because you're talking about Laurie and how supportive she is of you, and also Laurie's doing her own things too. She's got some stuff she's working on as well as being a full time mother,
Mm-hmm.
and just generally awesome person.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, you guys both gave shout outs to your parents. I'm gonna give a quick shout out to my parents. Awesome people. My dad is a tank. Like
Yeah.
he just has always done whatever it takes to get things done.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of like skills, he is probably one of the people with the broadest variety of skills that he is above like general competence at.
Yeah.
And my dad loves to compare himself to professionals, and I think, and when I say that, I mean he'll always be like, you'll be like, "Hey, Dad, this room looks so nice," and he's like, "Oh, it's not professionally done. Like it's not done
Yeah.
well
Yeah.
enough."
It's, yeah.
And my dad just has a very high standard of excellence, and he holds himself to that standard and does, he does mechanic work while he's also a musician who can play multiple instruments,
Hmm.
while he's also like working full time, raising a family, and he can do woodworking, housework, whatever. And now I'm saying this, I feel kind of like a scrub, guys. I feel like I don't have that broad variety of
That's it.
skills.
Well, yeah, he has a few years on you.
Yeah,
That's it.
yeah. Maybe by then I'll be able to actually do anything with music.
Other than your beautiful singing voice.
Yes, my beautiful singing voice. It's perfect.
That's right.
Austin has many times heard me sing "Make Me Lose Control" by Eric Carmen.
That's right.
In the shower.
That's right.
I mean, we were roommates.
Yeah.
There was like a year period where I sang that nonstop, like just mostly just the chorus, and it got to be where Austin knew the words, but he hadn't heard the song ever. And
That's true.
he heard the song for the first time. He's like, "Oh, so this is what it sounds like."
Yeah, that's right.
He's like, "You don't sound like it at all."
That's right.
How did you survive?
We made it. That's right. That's right.
Barely.
That's right.
And then my mom, she raised 10 kids. She's a stay-at-home mom, and she's worked on and off throughout that time period. And it's just amazing. I feel like I got my love of sports and of stuff like that from my mom. Also, incredibly hard and incredibly tough. Although, amidst all those positive things, I have to say she has tiny hands. Which
okay.
it's irrelevant because she always tells me I'm tough and I've got these big fists. And
That's
she
right.
doesn't. She's tough, but she has tiny hands, which
Okay.
is why, if you notice, I have also tiny hands. For you viewers at home, my hands are tiny. But I think my parents are amazing in the same way, and I think Austin, I'm gonna kind of spin it back to you. You talked to me this weekend about like the people you surround yourself with.
Mhm.
Can you kind of enlighten us a little bit on how that affects you in your life and how you think it'll affect other people, as well as never mind, I'll get to that later. Just
Yeah, so I think there's a principle, and it's like probably have heard this in some form in some way, but it's like essentially that you're the culmination of the five people that you spend the most time with.
mm-hmm.
And it rolls also into like saying that proximity is power. Uh, so this weekend so right now, like I work in door-to-door solar, and so I was at D2D Con 7, which is the big conference for door-to-door professionals across the country that in Utah come in. There's like workshops, there's cool speakers like Sean White and Lance Armstrong were there and spoke. Like there's workshops from top performers, all these things. Casey Baugh is a pretty well-known guy in Utah, like a running an like investment private equity type firm. Um, so there's a lot of high-level people, and like it's a during that event they give out what's called golden doors, which is like top 1% of the industry. And so during this, there were probably like between all the door-to-door industries, there's pest control, there's alarms, there's people that sell meat, there's solar, there's pretty much anything you can think of. There are probably like 150 people up there, and everyone you're looking at on stage is making 300,000 to a million plus, knocking doors, selling, and cold contacting. So it's the idea that uh like the environments that I spend time in, the people that I'm around the most, the uh I'll tend to pick up those habits, but it's even more importantly, you pick up like their mentality and approach. And the approach of a guy who makes 100 million and his perspective on the world is very different than someone who's first starting out part time, or maybe a high school kid that makes 10,000, right? Or a college student that's in their first job that's making 30 to 60K a year. And so it's the idea that like if if that's who you want to be or where you want to go, we're going to find ways to be in proximity or to be mentored by those people, and to have that be the people I surround myself with. Because if
Yeah.
and it was funny, they talk a lot about advice. I love my parents and the people in my life that I'm close to. But they kind of pose the question. I'm like, if you want to make 100 million, it's like, would you go to uh, like your basketball coach or your bishop or your whoever? It's like, no, I probably wouldn't, right? Unless they were doing that. But like, I might go to them for marriage advice, for like direction in my spiritual life, and so it's the idea of like when you have goals, when you have things that you're working towards, you find people who are top notch, who are performing at the highest level in that, and that's who you surround yourself with. If you can't be with them in person, like those are the books that you read, those are the podcasts you listen to consistently. You
Absolutely.
put yourselves in environments where other people are working towards those same goals, um, and it makes a huge difference. That was a big reason why I jumped into solar, as I had income goals and things that I was working on where the proximity or like the environment that I was in wasn't where I wanted to end up in the long term. And so I shifted. And this year for me in doing that, like I made 4 times what I had ever made in a year before. And that was same industry, same type of job, but I changed into a different product and got around different people. And so I saw that in my own life. And then my goal this year is to double what I did this last year. And to do that, right, I'm now surrounding myself with mentors, with people that have done that, and in environments where like that's how they think and that's how they work. So that's like the principle, and it can apply to anything too.
Yeah.
Like, um,
Yeah, I think that's awesome, and I think personally, Austin, you're gonna be wildly successful. You already are. You're gonna be even more. I'm calling it right now on the air, and when you are, you'll be $100,000 for calling it. Just saying.
okay.
Just calling
I
that.
want you to know that I support you.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank
William
you,
And that
supports
support
you.
is worth something.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
As Williams
It
makes
is.
the money symbol with his hand.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, thank you.
I was gonna say I loved what you said about that being applicable in a lot of different senses,
Yeah.
because here on the opposite end of the table we have Brandon Williams. Now, one thing I love about Brandon Williams is he has the same sort of dedication that I've seen in Austin, right?
Mhm.
Williams, though, has illustrated to me that he's not as concerned about the amount of money that he makes. Like, he wants to make a living, like, he wants to do well. He has kind of other priorities. Like, he initially picked being a philosophy professor as his profession because he felt like that would be a good place for him to be. And professors do okay, but they're never going to be like millionaires unless they go into kind of other areas as well. But I really like, so with that in mind, I really like that you said that that applies to a number of different things, because in any situation you can create a support system that helps to meet your goal, whatever that goal is. Like, if you want to create a lot of financial stability or to be really well off, then you find people who are going to be or really well off or are on or well, sorry, you find people who are really well off and who have been successful at the things you want to be successful at. Be around those people, listen to their podcast, do those things. If you want to be a professor or like wherever you're going with it, go be around professors, be around people of that type, spend time with them, find out how they did it, and then either replicate it or find a way to do it better. And so for you, Williams, do you have any additional thoughts on this? Do you have anything you'd like to add about kind of what you think it would be to be successful, how you'd go about doing that, in and not specifically in a monetary way? That's kind of the added caveat there.
Yeah, I do not go for uh, the big money. Although it'll probably come from this podcast.
Well,
That's
well,
right.
absolutely.
That's
Well,
right.
and that's why you
That's
turned
right.
down doctoring, right?
Yeah,
Because
that's
you were
right.
going to be
Yeah.
a doctor, and then you thought that's too much money. Philosophy.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's right.
exactly. No, I think that whatever you're gonna do, I think you're gonna feel good doing the very best you can at it and being one of the top in your field.
Mhm.
I think everyone has the capacity to be top in or among the top in some some facet. Or
Yeah,
aspect
in whatever
some
field they choose. Yeah.
Right. And so I think for me, these are the kind of fields where I think I'm going to have some of the most success. I think the most joy in what I do.
Yeah.
Things I'll be most passionate about. Do I expect to be passionate about it every single day that I have to do it? No, because at the end of the day, I do need money.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
To a certain extent.
Yeah.
However, I think that I'll be happier and I'll feel as though I'm going to have a bigger impact in this particular way. I'm not, it seems like you're a very social and out there type guy. And this business that you're doing allows you to utilize that, I think, to the best of your abilities. I am a little bit more introverted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny because I can get up in front of audiences if I feel like I have a good grasp of something.
Yeah.
And teach a lesson or give a talk or something like that. And well, I don't think I'm the most proficient in it. I think I've been told that other people think
You're-
that I do a decent job.
You're definitely you do well socially. I think you have less interest in being social than some other people.
Right.
But
I
you
could
you
not do
are
what
social.
you're doing.
That's,
To
that's,
be honest with you.
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I would die.
Yeah. We wouldn't want that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's it.
The mission, the only reason I could knock doors
Yeah.
was because I truly 100% believed in that product.
Yeah, that's-
There's nothing else that I believe in so much that I could get out
Yeah.
in that kind of heat
Yeah, that's
for
right.
hours on end getting
Yeah.
sworn at.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But you can, and that is something special. to be
Thank you.
honest.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. But yeah, so I think it's for me, I think I can perform quite well. I think I can have the most impact and help the most people doing these sorts of things. And perhaps because it is very difficult to get into, not that I won't strive for it, I would. There are several different things I'd like to do. And a lot of those do fall into education. But I think that we each have a lot of different things that we could do, and it's just about picking one.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think kind of the point I was leaning towards is that it's applicable anywhere. Like, I think like wanting to be more financially stable is a fantastic goal. I share those goals to some degree. I probably fall a little bit between you 2 where I want to be like somewhat financially successful, but I don't know if I'm gonna be shooting for as far as I think you'll go, Austin.
Yeah.
And then as far as Williams
Well,
goes,
I'm not hoping to be dirt poor. So.
well, I know. No, I agree. I agree. I know you don't want to be dirt poor.
Yeah, that's right.
I just feel like when we've talked about it in the past, you've kind of prioritized like making a difference, and which Austin and I do as well. But you've kind of prioritized making a difference, and you're like, as long as I make a comfortable-ish living, like I afford a house, cars, like everything like that, and you're like, that is fine by me. And I think that honestly, and that's kind of why I turned it to you. I think that's really honorable and great. If you need more water, by the way, you can pour some from there.
You kind gentleman.
You're welcome. Don't say I never did anything for you.
That's right. Yeah.
But
You
I'm
did
never
one
gonna.
thing.
Yeah, I
That's
did
right,
one
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Don't you forget it.
That's right.
Oh, I won't.
But it kind of makes me think of my dad. I mean, we're talking about our parents a lot this episode. But my dad said to me once, I was like a teenager, and I was telling him how I kind of wanted to change the world, and I wanted to make like a bunch of money and be really successful. And my dad said, like if you want to do that, you can do that. And he said, and I would support you in it. But he said, another thing that you should be aware of is if you raise your family right and you make sure they're provided for and just kind of fulfill your responsibilities there, you can make a bigger difference than a lot of people. And not only that, you can do all that you really need to do in life by doing that. And so throughout this episode, I just kind of wanted to maintain the theme that like hard work and success are not always linked to monetary gains. They can be, and that's not a bad thing. In fact, I think that's a very good thing. However, like there are many people who are going to be successful and who are going to make a big difference in a bunch of other ways. Like for example, we talked about my mom. She really hasn't pursued very many career options. Like she's worked a fair amount and she like makes okay money, but she has raised 10 kids
That is
Yeah.
quite the feat.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. But her and my dad, of course, he was there, on weekend. I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
yeah,
No,
that's right, yeah.
no, my dad was always around, and we all learned a lot from him. But I think like my parents did an excellent job of that, and I think for them, you think if all of their kids grow up to be upstanding citizens, which some of my siblings are, that might be a bit much to describe them.
Including
Yeah.
the one in this room.
Yeah.
The success
Exactly. I think that if everyone in my family except me grew up to be successful, upstanding citizens, I leave myself out because that's already that's a given.
That's right, yeah, that's right, yeah, that's right.
Then like my parents will have made a huge difference in a lot of cultures because I truly believe that people can make a big difference like on an individual basis. And something that Austin's sister Amanda talked about years ago, which I've always remembered, is she talked about gatherers. And that was her description of kind of people who gather groups of people to them, and they create an atmosphere that's positive in some way. And she described Austin as a gatherer, and I completely agree with that. But you think about the difference that Austin's going to be making in his lifetime by gathering people, making them feel comfortable, being social, helping to uplift those around him. Like it's going to be a huge thing. And the same is true of Williams. Williams is a little less social than Austin, as we've discussed.
Or
Yeah.
significantly.
Yeah, that's right, yeah, that's right, yeah.
However, I can tell you, Williams has been a phenomenal friend for me. Just like Austin. Don't want you to feel like I'm not saying he hasn't been.
No,
They've both been.
Just remember, we're here to fight.
Yeah,
so
well, that's true. Well, that's why I can't
That's
appear to
right.
be partial.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
can't appear to be partial because if you beat Williams, then
That's right.
then I would be like, oh yeah, I was rooting for you all along.
That's right.
But I mean, like Williams may not like have quite as large a friend group. Also, you might. I don't really know like the active friend groups. And honestly, Austin, you probably mostly hang out with Lurie anymore.
It's true. Yeah.
Which is
Well,
good.
when you get married, I think that's acceptable.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
But like I feel like there's a lot that we can add to the peoples in our lives, and both of you have been phenomenal supports for me. Both of you are people that I talk to about many things. A lot of times dating or not dating. Williams,
Well,
why are you
vice
laughing?
versa.
Yeah, exactly. And so, with that, I just think I want to emphasize for a second the importance of having friends and having like a solid friend group. Like for me, I think my friends and my family are everything. And I mean that's kind of an obvious theme. Everyone agrees with that. However, I think about the amount of times that I've relied on my friends or that my friends have relied on me and the difference it makes in my life. And so I would just encourage anybody to go out and seek new friends. If you have a very active and healthy friend group where you're close, you're vulnerable, you work closely with, like I know a lot about both of you, and we're gonna spend the rest of the airtime sharing all of your deep personal secrets.
That's perfect.
Yeah. Let's get those out there.
Yeah, that's right.
And
Yeah.
and both of you know a lot about me, which is the only thing keeping me from doing that. Like the whole balance of power here.
That's right.
In fact, I might be
That's right.
I might be at a bit of a disadvantage here because it's a 2v1 in that sense. You guys don't have much on each other.
That's
So
right. That's right. Yeah.
But yeah, I think friendships is super important, and you guys have both been really close rocks for me in my life. So for you, Austin, you're kind of a gatherer in that way. You bring people to you, you create situations that are beneficial to people and to society generally.
Mhm.
How do you feel like you go about that? Do you think you really do anything special, or do you think it's just kind of in your nature?
That's a good question. I think when I was in high school, I went to some basketball, and I say camps, but they don't call themselves camps, but it was called Point Guard College. And like it was basketball training, but more so it was like leadership and like perspective training. And I'd
Mhm.
recommend like any athlete to go and to do that, or because when they were teaching you about like how to be a point guard, and right? On a point guard or a point guard on a basketball team is usually the leader of the team. They're directing traffic, they're calling plays, their uh, influence is also off the court too, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a person that you want to be. They call it sheepdogging, which is like just kind of watching out for the herd, like or the flock or whatever. Checking in on guys, like helping guys get in for early work, like helping guys be in the weight room, like being an example of that, but not just a silent example, like somebody who speaks up and kind of maintains culture. And so I learned like just a different way of thinking about things through that when I was younger. Because it's funny, like when I was in high school, I would have been described as like quiet, reserved, and super nice. I was
Mm.
like the nice kid. I was a freshman in high school, and it was like all the senior girls would be like, "Oh, like you're so
Aw.
cute and nice," and like that. It was like that type of thing where I was just like a little, I don't even know what, just like a little cute little kid that they thought was nice to like dote on or whatever, just
Mm.
because I would just smile and say hi, not much else. And
Well, the senior
uh,
girls in high school when I was there, they didn't talk to me even when I was a senior. So
we all know why, Nick. Okay.
it's carried on into later life as well.
Just kidding.
But I'm sorry not to
Yeah.
cut off your
No,
thought. What were
no,
you saying?
no, no. But I think like that, and part of that too, like they kind of like trained, like kind of taught and trained, like an intentional like extroversion, like as in just like looking out for people, reaching out. So I just like would practice that, and it was a big stretch for me, and took years to get there. But um, it's funny, like an exercise that I don't know if we'll have any like college students listening, but if you want to like uh, kind of have like an interesting day and some experiences, like I remember when I got back from my mission at BY, I came to BYU for like a visiting semester, just like
Mm-hmm.
6 or 8 weeks out here.
Give it a shot, kind
Yeah,
of
yeah, and I didn't have any intention of coming here. I was at SVU and was
happily.
planning. Yeah, was planning to go back, but I had missed the semester. I was like, well, like why not just like go out to Utah, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I went, and I would walk to classes. It's a big campus. It's 25 minutes, and simple test, just like, and this is like every person. It'll feel a little weird at first, but every person I walk by, say hello, give them a smile, and kind of like a yes type
Mm.
head nod. And you'd be shocked at like, first of all, how many people like almost like figuratively fall out of their chair when you do that.
Uh-huh.
But like coming here not knowing anyone, the way that I built a friend group within a couple weeks is I legitimately just stopped every person that I walked by for a brief moment and like introduced myself, like, "Hey, what's going on, brother? I'm Austin. I like the sweatshirt. Where are you from, man? Oh, cool." And then I had like some type of little gathering thing I was gonna do. So I'd be like, "We're gonna go dancing down at the dancing place downtown by the Provo City Center Temple right there."
Mm-hmm.
So I legitimately stopped like every dude and every girl that I passed, introduced myself, told them what we were doing, and with a lot of them, just like exchanged contact info.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I showed up, like we had 30 people that were there, and the only connection for all of them was me.
There you
And
go.
that's it. But I didn't really know anyone. No one really knew each other. We just kind of show up and do our thing. Just like built a friend group really quickly out here by doing that. But uh, it's more of a mindset of like what can I do to just uplift the people that are around me?
Mm-hmm.
Because I find like usually when you see this in door to door too, right? Usually when we're fearful, we're feeling anxious, uh, like I'm starting to doubt myself or whatever. It's when the focus is on me. It's like I don't know if I can do this. Oh, like I think I might be bothering people. Oh, like I did. And when you get super inwardly focused, uh, like that's just kind of where your attention is. And
Mm-hmm.
so if you just flip it out, and let's say like you're more introverted, be curious, maybe you can even try this one day. You just flip it out, and rather than being like, ooh, it's kind of like sometimes it's a little bit difficult for me to talk to people. It's just like you just make a little change and you go like, I'm gonna walk across campus today and see how many people's days I can just brighten. And that's it. And your focus is now like, I'm not worried about making friends. I'm not worried about, I'm just gonna see if I can like influence for good. And if you do that, like you kind of treat your day and the people and the experiences differently. Like, oh, I'll just smile and say hello, what's up? And I'll generally, when I ask someone how they're doing, it's not like, hey, how are you? Good, good. Moving on. It has like a genuine feel to it. Like, hey, man, like how are you doing? And then there's really not much you're getting out of it. You don't have really another agenda. I think you find like you start having experiences that just kind of change how you think about things over time. People come up to you and be like, I was having a really bad day 2 weeks ago, but you said hi to me and did this, and that just like brightened my day. And you kind of go like, oh, maybe I am more capable of building relationships, forging. So it's not like an overnight thing, but I think that general approach is like what I like learned to take.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think sometimes even now I get so focused on work and what I'm doing that I don't do that nearly as well as I used to. But found during that time I was a lot happier. I had like a larger group of friends and influence. And it would be like I walk into a room and lots of people come up and like treat me like I'm their best friend. And I'm like, I just like I didn't, which is totally cool. And like I have good relationship and respect, but people will view you differently and want to be around you. And I think
Mm.
that is what gathers more than like any like cool thing or
Any one
ability
specific
or
thing, yeah.
specific thing. It's just like that mentality that helped me to gather people during that time.
To summarize, if I'm understanding,
Yeah.
it seems like two main things. One, being willing to put yourself out there,
Hmm.
and two, caring about other people.
Yeah.
Is there anything else to add, or is it?
Yeah. And I think being willing to put yourself out there, caring about other people, and doing it from a perspective where it's not about you.
Hmm.
It's a lot less scary to do something if you're not like associating a failure or a difficulty with it. It's like, oh no, like my whole goal today is just to see there's like 20 people I can kind of brighten their day. And then like it has nothing to do with me at that point. Like whether they like me or not or whatever. It's like somebody kind of like looks at you like, why are you talking to me? You're kind of like, oh, well, hope their day gets better. I
Yeah.
tried, but like it just doesn't become about you. It's
Yeah.
about them. Yeah,
Well, we had a conversation about this even
yeah,
years ago, but we had a conversation about, yeah, William. So you and I have conversations now. Austin and I
Oh,
used to have conversations
oh,
back in.
okay.
Don't get
yeah.
jealous. Don't
That's
get
right.
jealous.
I thought you were too tight on me for a second.
Yeah,
No, no,
I
no.
was
This
getting a
was
little worried.
this was
yeah, yeah,
before you, Williams. I'm
Okay.
yeah,
only loyal to you. Don't you
Okay.
worry.
yeah.
Okay.
That's
Um,
right.
we had a conversation at about most oftentimes. Now there are exceptions, but most oftentimes the difference between something being like normal and it being weird is only confidence. Like that's pretty much it. Because if you are walking down the street and this guy comes up to you and says hi, for the first second you're gonna be like, "This is weird." Like
Yeah,
this, you're like, "Why is he saying hi to me?" But after like a minute of talking, you're gonna start to be like, "Oh, now we're just talking. Like this guy just must be friendly."
yeah,
And so it's something really anybody can do. I don't know really quick. I don't know if everybody's going to be quite comfortable like approaching everyone they walk by. I actually did that at SVU too
yeah,
because I didn't have friends, and so I walked around. I would walk past people. I'd be like, "Oh, hey!" And SVU is a little easier because it's a really small campus,
yeah,
so you see people multiple times there. Usually, there's not that many people you haven't like at least heard
yeah,
of generally. But I think that it can apply to a number of places, even if you're not doing that on the street. Like if you don't feel completely
yeah,
comfortable, like the man, the myth, the legend, Austin Wood,
yeah,
just approaching people and like meeting them out of nowhere. You can do it with a number of people. You can do it with grocery store clerks. You can do it
totally.
with like grocery store clerks are my favorite actually because if you go up to them, a lot of times their day's been mundane. Most people that ask them how they're doing don't actually care.
Yeah,
They're just kind of making conversation. So I love to make conversation with grocery store clerks and just be like, "Hey, how's your day going? Do you have any fun plans for the weekend? Whatever." And definitely sometimes I don't care as much as I should,
yeah,
but generally I try and like keep it like try and brighten their day a little bit. So I think like just applying this on a softer sense for anybody who might not quite be as used to being a social as you or I are, like you can do that at work, you can
Yeah.
do it at school, you can do it at church. Any gathering that you go to on a semi-regular basis is a really easy place to say, "Hey, like I'm Nate.
Yeah.
I've been going here. I haven't met you yet. What's your name?" And then you search for interest. And then as soon as you find common interest, invite people. Invite them to go do something. And a lot of people aren't going to come. A lot of people are going to say no, but there are tons of people that are going to say yes. And some of those people are going to become your good friends. Like,
Yeah.
um, did you invite me to do something before we became roommates, Austin? I feel like we did something, some sort of an event, and then you became my roommate,
It
and
was
then
a
we
while
became
back, yeah, but I
yeah
feel like ended up doing
something,
some
probably
probably
something
like
with
a
like
game
Bennett or
night or
something. Yeah,
yeah,
Big
yeah,
B.
Big B.
Yeah,
Shout out to Big B.
shout out to Big B.
That's
He
right.
surely listens.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, and I think too the maybe just to clarify too, I think that this whole thing isn't necessarily just about like making friends. It's like it's kind of that what we were talking about earlier, which is like it's like the approach that you can take and the way that you can frame your life. Because I think that there are like natural tendencies that we all have to be kind of how we are, but where we stay is like relying on what we choose to do. So
Mm.
me naturally, I am actually more introverted
Mm-hmm.
naturally, and what's funny, I've never heard this term before until a couple weeks ago, but I think it's maybe I'm misquoting this here, but there's like something called an omnivert, which is where like essentially you can be extroverted and are fine with it, but you're also totally fine doing your own thing. I think that's where I land. Like, and I tend to be more on the introverted side, but like in sales and that whole thing, I'm totally fine. Like going out and talking to people and doing that. Like, would I naturally choose that on my day to day? Probably not. I think I would actually choose more introverted things most often or like close friend groups. But I trained myself over the years to be in this middle ground where I'm fine doing it. Like, am I gonna be the guy now that like goes out and just is like constantly doing big group stuff? Like
Mm-hmm.
probably not. I'm more low key. I like hanging out with my family and being home, but I also realize the value of like having like an extroverted side of like when I want to like if I want to impact influence, it usually doesn't come from me doing my own thing, right? So I have to live intentionally to or like to be the type of person have the type of impact that I want to have, which if that's different than where I am right now, I just need to be okay with the process of learning and developing and growing into that. I think that's really what this is more about is like uh, is I just chose to take a different approach and to learn. And so the talking to everybody going across campus was not comfortable for me at all in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but it was more like, okay, like I'm going to do this as a type of influence that I want to have. And I wasn't so concerned about like making the friends or doing the this. It was like how do I want to be? And like when someone's around me, like what would I want them to feel?
Mm-hmm.
And what do I need to do to be that and to have that influence? And then the path becomes pretty clear at that point, and then it just becomes like a what are your willingness to act, to grow, and to do that. And I think the nice thing about life is no matter where you're at, everyone is capable of developing into who they want to be. Um, it's really just about what your willingness is to actually take
The
actions towards that.
application
Yeah.
and your willingness to take ownership too, because
Yeah.
I think it can be a comforting sight or thought to think about. I think it's comforting in a way to think, oh, I'm just the way I am, and that's how it is. And I appreciate you pointing out that it wasn't comfortable for you to do that on the campus, because I relate to that very much, because it was very uncomfortable for me as well when I did it at SVU. Um and I have heard a lot of people say things like, "Oh, I'm just not as social as you. I don't kind of feel that." And the thing is if that's, as long as they recognize that that's their choice,
Yeah.
then I'm like, that's great. Like, it's your decision though. At the end of the day, um, but yeah. So I just really like that you acknowledged your own decision making process and kind of your stretching, and that's why I kind of added that little caveat at the end that, like, it doesn't necessarily have to be that, because some people are going to think about it and be like, oh, I cannot make that big of a step. Doesn't mean you can't. Maybe you need to take a littler step and then work your way up to it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really like that. You have any thoughts, Sir Williams?
Not necessarily.
All right, you dirty dog, you.
Oh, shit.
I know. That's who I am.
So we have a couple of shorter questions. We're kind of getting ready to wrap up. Austin and Williams, you dirty dog. Okay, I apologize. I forgot Austin's nickname. Austin, you dirtbag. Williams, you dirty dog.
That's
just so you viewers know, the dirtbag is a term of endearment
it is.
in certain groups.
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
In certain cultures.
Yeah,
Certain
exactly.
cultures.
Specifically, the culture of Nate, Austin, and Andrew.
Yes, that's right.
So Austin, you dirtbag. Williams, you dirty dog. Do we have anything we kind of want to add before we finish up the show? Because we're going to kind of totally turn and swivel to kind of our finishing moments.
All you, Austin.
Oh, me. Yeah, I would say we've talked about like uh, a lot of cool things on this podcast. Actually, I'm glad that you invited me to do this. I didn't really know what I was in for, but I think this has been awesome. So
I really enjoyed
yeah.
having you on.
Yeah, I think anybody who listens to this could pick up some value in some way. So what you guys are doing that's really cool. This is a fun project. So I'm like, maybe I'm gonna start a podcast myself
Do it.
when I get back.
Do it.
So I love that.
We support you. We throw all of our viewers. It's
no.
the world population,
That's
by the way.
right.
Look at this podcast.
Look at this podcast. Perfect. Hey, vice versa, man. All my subscribers, I'll send your way.
Well, please do. I mean, we already have the world's population,
Oh yeah.
but
That's
they
right.
could subscribe again.
Yes, that's right. That's right. I think probably like just the most important lesson I've taken over the last year is uh, like process is what it's about.
Mm.
And the results you're going to get are really just going to be reliant on your consistency with sticking to whatever process you outline. So if you want to be, if you're introverted, you want to become more extroverted, and your process for that is that each day you need to take a walk across campus that has no other purpose other than to just stretch and talk to people, to like feel super nervous and pass somebody by you wanting to talk to me. Like, oh, dang, okay, hold on, I'm gonna hit the next one. Like, and rather than doing that once and then stopping, or doing it every other day, like committing to something that you do on a daily basis. Like, I found when I was in this conference and seeing a lot of high producing people, when we were talking kind of about wealth, right? It's those guys, every single one of them. Listened to Lance Armstrong this weekend, Shaun White, like top athletes and performers in their fields for a long time. All of them came back to, and over again, that they had a process that they outlined, that they stuck to over a long period of time, that led to where they were at. And Lance was really interesting because he talked about like the doping scandal and all the stuff that was going on, which was cool to see the insight on that from him. He's super open. But what was interesting is basically all of those top competitors were doing that. And I guess that isn't even really like relevant to what I'm talking about. But what he would say is, even amongst all that, like using performance enhancing drugs and the whole thing, like his success was like tied to the fact that he was so consistent with his process and with the training that he was doing. there were multiple other people that were like on the tour that he was competing against that were more talented and like naturally gifted than he was. And he described like on a rainy day, like I put on a rain jacket. He goes, my top competitor, and I forget his name, like usually if it was raining, and he goes, he was way more talented than me. I was so scared of this guy. Like he just wouldn't show up. He'd be like, ah, it's okay. Like, I'll get at it tomorrow. You go over like a year of training where Lance puts in 15 or 20 more days of like solid training. And this isn't saying you have to train 20 hours a day or do that, but like whatever that process was, he stuck to it. And that's what led him to be world class. And so, in your own way and in your own pursuits and the things that are important to you, you can become world class, as influential as you want to be, feel as good about yourself as you would like to feel by make the changes that you want to make by just outlining a process that you stick to. For me, that was like the main thing this year that changed my income because that was one of my big goals. Is I just wanted to make more money. Like I outlined a process, I layered out ways that I was going to track it. I just stuck to it for a year, and with ups and downs and hard things, but like by the end of that, it was 4 times what I'd ever made before. And there, people would ask me like, "Oh, how'd you do that? Like, what are the little sales tricks and things that you know?" I'm like, what do you do in your pitch? I'm like, I mean, maybe I'm a little bit more nuanced, but like, I pretty much say the exact same thing that you guys say on my team. We all use the same pitch. But what's different is I'm there when it's rainy. I'm there when it's cold. I'm there when I feel like it. I'm there when I don't. And that's where I saw the progress. So anybody who's really working on something, you like ruthlessly evaluate like how good you are really at sticking to what you're doing consistently. You'll find the areas where you can grow and improve. And I think you'll realize you're a lot closer to being able to do what you want, be who you want to be, and you think you are. And it's just little tweaks and choices that you make every day.
I agree.
I like it.
I do think consistency is really big. A phrase that I heard once that I love, like it just gets me feeling some kind of way. To quote Craig, that's what he says.
Yeah.
Is it's called the aggregation of marginal gains,
Mm.
and I feel like that is 100% what it is. It's creating consistency through the aggregation of marginal gains. Just little gains over time are going to be what gets you there. You're not going to have, like, you can't go work super, super hard one day out of the week and become as successful as you want to be.
Oh man,
I'm
doing it all wrong.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Williams.
Okay.
Dang it,
You're
yeah.
you're a big fan of the I don't know, the slow culmination of massive gains.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
That's been my life.
Well,
I guess I've been doing it wrong.
Williams, I listen. It worked for you because you are the greatest man alive. But
that's false.
not from the source I heard. But
Fake news.
I will say one thing I really loved about this episode is the fact that, like I said, I read you guys all my notes. There are no secret notes other than those.
But you've been looking at the notes the entire time.
I have
Yeah.
been. Well, there's been a lot of
Right.
focus here.
Yeah.
I've been like drive. Oh, hard work too. Those are good.
Yeah,
But I love that it turned first to our support system and to family and friends. Because I feel like, at least to me, that is something that's huge. And I just think, I love that that's just where it automatically went. Because it wasn't intentional. We went there and then we went to consistency and being uncomfortable and doing all this stuff. And honestly, if we didn't have to get Austin to the airport and if Williams didn't have church, I feel like we could have continued the conversation for quite a bit longer to kind of explore some of the more nuanced aspects of it. But I feel like this is a perfect place to kind of close up our conversation for now, to be continued at a later date, maybe about something entirely different. Although we have just 2 more questions. The second one was earlier promised and much anticipated. How much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? Austin, we'll start with you.
When I was in school, there were 2 answers you would always give when you didn't know. One was C, and the other was 7.
Respectable. Respectable. Williams, your counter argument.
I take something more nuanced approach. I
Fair
think it's
enough.
important to talk about what woodchuck. You know,
Yeah.
is it the jacked woodchuck that has been chopping wood every day consistently, like we talked
That's fair.
about,
Yeah.
making
those gains.
making
Yeah,
those
yeah,
gains.
yeah.
We're
Well,
talking about the one that's just before winter, trying to gather in all the wood,
well,
and just going.
let me converse with the people. Austin, which woodchuck is it?
I guess it would have to be our consistent Chucky, right?
Yeah, I think
That's-
so. In continuing with the episode. So that's your answer. What's now your answer to our answer?
Well, I think there's a whole bunch of other factors that we can't, unless I see this woodchuck, I evaluate, how many chunks of wood per minute he's chucking.
Waves, you're sounding a little mamby-pamby, like you don't want to give me a solid answer.
I'm a philosopher in my nature.
That's
I
right.
ask the questions.
Yeah.
We never arrive at an answer. We just talk about it.
That's right.
The only thing that you do know is that you do not know.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
And that's what makes me so great.
That's right. That's
Just like Socrates.
Socrates.
Well,
baby.
He's
we've
the wisest
as-
because he knew he didn't know.
As intelligent sounding yet disappointing as that answer is,
That's
I'm gonna go side with Austin. I'm gonna say 7.
That's right.
Also, fun fact for you, I will tell you, I have asked that question to many people in jest, and 7 is by far the most common answer.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it's not close. It's like 95% 7, and I think one person said 3. Like I think it's pretty much all been 7. So I'm leaning more and more towards 7.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I mean, majority rule must be right.
It's
People
true.
have spoken.
Even if it's wrong, you must be
Yeah,
right.
yeah, that's right.
Of course, Waves. Everyone knows that what the culture's broad perception is always correct.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
All right, and then our last question of the day, and arguably the most important.
I would say most important.
Waves, would you like to ask it?
If you'd like me to.
Yeah, I'd love you to.
Austin, are you a dirty dog or a silly goose? And why?
Oh man,
I know.
You didn't know the pressure was going to be put on. Did
Take
you?
a deep breath.
this is a challenge. My gut says I'm a dirty dog.
Oh, Austin.
All
Well,
right.
congratulations. You are our first dirty dog on the show.
That's
Yeah.
right.
On this
Every
podcast,
other
it's
guest
not a
Has been
Yeah.
a silly goose. We do have one chonky monkey.
Right.
Most
of the third options we wouldn't let slide, but that one was good enough.
That was good enough.
It's interesting. I'm noticing a pattern. It seems like my family are silly gooses. So far, my friends are dirty dogs.
That's right.
Whoa,
So-
your roommates.
Yeah, my
Yeah,
roommates.
that's
It's true.
right.
It seems like I mesh with a specific type of person.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, that's an excellent answer. Do you have an answer for why you say dirty dog, or is it just a
Yeah.
gut feeling?
Oh, it was a gut feeling, and I feel like sometimes if you got to get things done, you just got to get down and dirty.
It's got to be a
man.
dirty
Oh,
You just gotta
dog.
do it.
Dirty.
That's it.
I respect that answer. I respect it.
Yeah.
Okay, Austin, I warned you about this earlier. You're going to finish us off with our motto.
Which is something along the lines of, if you listen, great. If you don't, great. And Nate's a dirtbag. Right? That's right.
And that's how we close.
That's how we close.